before we start, if you haven't got one, go and grab yourself a coffee. I've got mine. So go and hit pause, go and make your coffee, come back, we'll have a coffee. Right, so let's have a proper look at this. I've been looking at an interesting story in the news this morning about property and about, in particular, stamp duty. There's been quite a lot of discussion about whether stamp duty and potentially council tax could eventually be replaced by a completely different way of taxing people. Possibly an annual property tax or some form of land value tax. Now, before we go any further, stamp duty is not being abolished. It's not some announcement that you've missed from the government. It's a debate about how property could be taxed differently in the future, but I think it's worth talking about. Because at first glance, getting rid of stamp duty sounds fantastic, particularly if you're a property investor. But I'm not convinced it's quite that simple. So let's put some actual numbers around it. If you're buying an additional residential property in the UK for, say, 150k, stamp duty is going to be £8,000. That's £8 grand before you've refurbished anything. £8 grand before you've paid your solicitor, before you've paid for a survey, before you pay for your mortgage or bridging fee, before the property's actually earned you a single penny in rent. So if I'm looking at 150k investment in property, I'm not really looking at 150k purchase, because 8k of that has to go into my numbers as well. And importantly, it's cash. It's money that's got to be available at the point when you buy it. So I completely understand the argument for getting rid of stamp duty, because it's a tax on the transaction itself. Every time somebody moves or an investor buys, government basically takes a fairly big chunk of money simply because the property's changed hands. And you can make a reasonable argument that this actually discourages transactions. Someone considering moving house might think, actually, we'll stay where we are. An investor looking at it, a marginal deal, might say, actually, no, it doesn't work. And potentially someone with 100k available to invest has got less of that capital available for refurb, improvements, another property, etc. So because some of it's disappeared into the tax on day one. So abolishing stamp duty could potentially make the market more fluid. It could lower the barrier to buying, and it could make moving easier. And from an investment point of view, it could make some deals considerably more attractive. As far I'm sold on it, get rid of it, great, except we need to ask the slightly less exciting question, what are you replacing it with? So that's Jack the dog having a little shake. Because one of the ideas being discussed is moving towards an annual tax based on property or land value. And that's where this gets more interesting, because now we're changing the way we think about the cost. So we can all agree stamp duty is painful, but it's a one-off. You pay it when you buy and then it's gone. Annual property tax is completely different. It's now a holding cost. If you're a landlord, holding costs matter massively. You've already got a mortgage, you've already got insurance, you've got maintenance, you've probably got management fees, you've got compliance, you've got repairs, you've got periods where things obviously go wrong, and of course tax. And another annual property charge, and that affects your cash flow every year that you own the property. And this is why I don't think investors should automatically celebrate the idea of abolish stamp duty. We need to see what comes after that. Because let's imagine, purely example, save £8,000 when I buy that 150k property.